at the Movies with Tim Sika. Tim Sika, hello to you.
Hello, Kim. I didn't mean to
Hi.
interrupt your flow there.
No, it's okay. I have these robot stories, but we'll do them after at the movies because I know everyone's waiting to find out what Tim Sika's classic movie recommendation of the week is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in just a moment, but I know you've been busy watching some movies, and the first movie you have for us is called The Phoenician Scheme.
Yes,
Let's
yeah,
yeah.
I'm a little late to the game on this one, but yeah, this is the latest from one of the cinema's, I would say, most singular artists who, with each new film, it seems goes farther and farther up his own nether regions.
What?
Uh, uh, okay, so what is the Phoenician Scheme? Okay, it's another one of director co-writer Wes Anderson's personal, I'll say visions, boasting another one of his what I call geometrically designed movies.
Hmm.
You have to see them to know what I'm sort of talking about. The production design is by Adam Stockhausen, who's this brilliant production designer, and that's yeah, his lately his movies have this going for them, and it also boasts a stellar cast, including Benicio del Toro, who's in the poster there, Michael Cera, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Scarlett Johansson, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Bill Murray plays God in this movie.
Oh, that's a good choice.
It is a good choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cameo, but it is very,
Mhm.
very funny. And of course, he plays him, as an old man with a long beard. Okay, anyway, so what's this about? It takes place in 1950, and Benicio del Toro plays an arms dealer, and who is also an unethical industrialist, as most industrialists seem to be, who stakes his mega fortune on this risky scheme to overhaul the infrastructure of Phoenicia with slave labor. Phoenicia, being an ancient Semitic speaking civilization in a region located along the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. If you think modern day Lebanon with parts of Syria and Israel thrown in. Anyway, and just listening to myself say that, I want to say, like, well, who cares? I mean, who cares? It almost doesn't matter what the plot of this movie is, because all of it is so subservient to the style and the look of the picture. Remember, I said geometrical design. This
Mhm.
movie, in other words, it's a wash in style, but is severely lacking in substance of any kind, and is so immersed in its physical, visual look and representation that it forgets how to tell a story in a way that makes you care, that allows for a rooting interest in its characters, and that
Mhm.
continuously engages you. It's a movie that's weak on traditional drama and only intermittently, I would say, is effective as comedy.
Oh.
And Anderson's movies, totally epitomized by the Phoenician Scheme, are becoming more and more like this one. Now, I've always considered myself a Wes Anderson apologist. A lot of people don't like his movies. I used to defend them a lot, but with the Phoenician Scheme, I'm now getting to the point where I'm saying, okay, enough is enough. I'm getting what the naysayers are starting to talk about. In other words, I'm beginning to find that the singular style of Wes Anderson is becoming tiresome and repetitive. And about 50 minutes in, I literally just stopped paying attention.
Oh,
One of
no.
the one of the annoying things about his movies is he sports this arch style of acting with his actors. I don't know how else to describe it. They all talk like this. They all talk in a monotone, and when they get excited, they talk like that. And then when
Why?
they, I don't know. I don't know, because that's what he does. And the fussiness of the film's look, the arch one note acting style of everybody, his emphasis on style over substance, his screenplays lack dramatic and narrative propulsion. And I found this movie almost impossible to get through, and a
Mm.
major slog. Yes, it's quirky. Yes, it's colorful. Yet it remains the work of a singular artist. I mean, I think Wes Anderson is an artist,
Mhm.
but I just couldn't wait until this movie was over. I couldn't. I must have looked at my phone, which you're not supposed to do when you're. But I think I was the only one in the theater. I kept looking at my phone, thinking, okay, at 20 minutes has to have passed, and I
Oh.
look at my phone, and it's like 4 minutes, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. Anyway, that was my experience watching the Phoenician Scheme. Yeah.
I'm gonna say that you want us to skip this one.
I would say yes, based on
Yeah,
what I just
yeah,
pontificated about. I would
yeah.
say skip it. Yeah, yeah.
Here's a movie that maybe grabbed your attention a little more. How to Train Your Dragon?
Yeah, this was a big surprise for me. This movie, it's another one of those live action remakes of a beloved animated feature,
Which
which is all.
historically you haven't liked very much.
No, 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 no. Which is all, and it's all that Disney seems to be doing
Mhm.
these days, and not too successfully, I think. But anyway, but in this case, we have a live action remake of the 2010 DreamWorks animated feature of the same name, How to Train Your Dragon. Did you ever see it, Kim? The
Yeah.
cartoon?
Oh,
Yeah.
many
Which,
times.
yeah, me too. Me too, right? Which was a total charmer.
Yeah.
And this one is not too far behind in that department, and in some ways better.
Oh.
It does better a number of things the original could only achieve within its animation construct. And in other words, this one's a charmer too, but because it's live action, it could be bigger, it could be louder, it could be, more bombastic. But where they stayed on course in transferring this into live action and CGI, of course, for all the dragons, is that for all of its wall-to-wall sound and special effects, which almost in the beginning I thought, it's going to threaten and dwarf the actual story. In the end, it was very successful because its focus was on character relationships, which ultimately gave way to some really deep human emotion. This is the fourth, I think, in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise IP. I think another live action one is in the planning or is scheduled to be released in the summer of 2027. So, I mean, the filmmakers have confidence in this IP that it's probably going to make lots of money. But I think this one is, of all of them, is my favorite. I mean, I love the original, but the director Dean DeBlow, who co-directed the first cartoon, the first How to Train Your Dragon, 2010, and he co-directed that one. He directed the next two animated follow-ups. He was wisely enlisted to direct this live action remake. He obviously knows this material like the back of his hand, what works and what doesn't, and mostly all of this works. It just worked. It was thrilling. It was involving. It was even at times poetic. It was touching. And it's a story about making peace with one's perceived enemy. Probably the best thing about it, given the times that we're living in, right? And it's a story of a teenage boy. His name is Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III. I love that name, Hiccup. Played by Mason James in this. He's son of the Viking Stoic the Vast, played by Gerard Butler, who voiced the original cartoons, but he's in full acting force. And and in this particular story, the Vikings and the dragons, they've been, bitter enemies for forever, for generations. And Hiccup, he's been trained to hate and kill all dragons, something he never really felt like he never felt comfortable doing or was suited to do, until he befriends this kind of cute dragon, Toothless the dragon, and he's as cute as dragons can get, I guess. But the scene in this movie of their bonding, the boy and the dragon's bonding, is really touching, and it's priceless. And as are a number of the flying sequences, which are downright poetic. So it's longer, of course, than the original by something like 25 minutes, but it's also more spectacular. The special effects are dazzling. Maybe this one might be a bit too intense and scary for the wee ones, but all of it works more than you would think as this family-friendly live action and very positive fantasy adventure. I saw it at a pre-screening where a group of, I would say, maybe middle school kids attended, and based on their reaction, this is going to be another big hit for the franchise.
Okay.
The kids really liked it. They got all the jokes. They were with it every step of the way. They kind of cheered when Hiccup and I can't remember the girl. I can't remember her name. When they kissed, I mean, the kids really got into that. I thought they were going to go. I thought they were going to go, ew, ew,
Ew.
no,
Yeah.
but they didn't. They kind of
Yeah.
they went, oh boy, and applauded. It was really really cute. Anyway, and in
Yeah.
IMAX, which is I saw this in IMAX. It's really quite the experience in IMAX. So yeah, I thought I was going to dismiss this one, but I found it really enjoyable. So I
Well, that's a
recommend it.
nice surprise, but well
Yeah,
done. Okay.
yeah.
The next one is called Materialists.
Yeah, here now I'm going to wager a bet and say that this is a movie for you, Kim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you can tell by the poster, right? No, 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 no. And actually, it's one I like very much too. I want to call it a romantic comedy, but it's really more of like a seriously romantic drama. I
Okay.
guess the best way to describe it is that it's a serious relationship picture, much like the director's last movie, the critically acclaimed Past Lives, which was Oscar nominated for Best Original Screenplay. The director in question here is Canadian filmmaker and playwright Celine Song. And what she's done here in Materialist, when I watch her movies, I have a difficult time uh, trying to put words to what it is that I'm feeling when I watch her movies. This one here, Materialist, which is an odd title for this particular story. What she's done here is to kind of create, maybe provide all of us with a new spin, I want to say, on the rom-com genre, but that's not exactly true either. Or this is a sort of a new type of romantic drama slash comedy. The feel of this picture, the tone of this picture, much like Past Lives, is just decidedly unique, and it's very special. And words are failing me here, so I hope I can get more precise as I ramble on here. But what Materialist is about is Dakota Johnson, who's in the middle there, the poster in the middle of the two men there. She gives her best screen portrait yet, I think. She plays a successful matchmaker who works for this New York firm that specializes in hooking people up. It's like Match.com, only she does all of this in person, right? You know, she makes phone calls, but she interfaces with the clients, talks to them, checks with them after, asks how the date went, blah blah blah. And she's considered good at her job and successful because her pairings have resulted in like 9 marriages. So she's kind of, you know, she's really respected within this community. And because of this past relationship she had with let me see in the poster, the guy on her left, an aspiring actor played by Chris Evans, she herself, she's now single. She decides that she's only going to marry a rich man. After having dated him, and that rich man who enters her life is played by Pedro Pascal, which is on her right there in the poster. And this is a movie. The more I think about, the more I like it. It's more than we usually get to. How can I say that? It's more than we usually get to see deep dive into relationships and the nature of relationships from the perspective of a very thoughtful and very intelligent millennial. The writer-director Celine Song. She's 36 years old, I think, and she explores all those, I'm going to say, superficial things that people think they need or require before entering into a relationship. You know, things like money and looks and political perspectives, all that stuff, all those things people value about a person, most of which really, when it gets right down to it, really don't have anything to do with the core of who someone actually is. I don't agree with a lot of the conclusions the director makes. I think many of her insights and assumptions are kind of reflective of a person who has lived 36 years, as opposed to someone, you know, double that age. For example, I think she says in the movie, she says that love, for example, is easy and that dating is hard. And I went,
What?
going, yeah, and I think the opposite is true. I think dating is easy and it's the love that's hard. But anyway, but there's some good, yeah,
that
right.
it makes no
Well,
sense to me because I know
yeah,
if you're from the perspective of someone who's in that slogging through the dating world and you can't find someone and you keep going on these dates and
yeah,
I can
yeah,
imagine that would be tough. But when you do find someone and you're in that dating mode, that's the fun part, right?
yeah. Well,
Because
yeah,
it's
I agree.
after the
Yeah,
marriage and I'm not saying marriage isn't fun, but it is work. This is
Yes.
this is the hard part, right? Where
That's the
you
heart,
yeah.
exactly, and I think that's where the love manifests. But
Yeah.
see, but that's yeah. But here's the thing. I think there's some good observational writing here, and there's
Mhm.
much about the movie that will inspire discussion and debate and conversation
Right.
because she does make some good points, but they're secondary to telling this kind of interesting story. And there was a purity and openness and an honesty about the acting and the writing and the direction that, much like in her previous film, Past Lives, that just made it all worth seeing. I'm thinking about the film, which again is
Mhm.
is rare, with all these movies that we have to see. So yeah, I'm giving it a recommendation. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Materialists. It's on the
Material.
list.
It's on the
And
list.
now, what you have been waiting for. Dun,
Really?
dun, dun. It is, yeah, actually, I get a lot of messages. Oh, I got a message just last week saying thank you to Tim because this woman and her husband wait for your recommendation and they watched it over the weekend. I
Oh,
forget
that's
what
sweet.
and they really loved it and they had not seen it in a number of years and they say they really enjoy these. So this is your classic movie rec of the week, and it is
Yeah,
Empire of the Sun.
right. And I can hear people going, "What?"
I did. I was
Okay.
like, 1987 is a classic? I guess,
Well,
I'm old now.
well,
Yep.
let's see. 87, 19, well, it's 36 years. 30. It's
Mhm,
well,
yeah,
almost 40 years. So yeah,
I
you can.
know. You're
Well,
right.
okay. Yeah.
When they
Okay. I
start having
know.
80s parties,
I
you're
know. I know. I know. I really
yeah.
let's table that for another time. But anyway, this movie, Empire of the Sun, in my opinion, is the movie that marked the beginning of Steven Spielberg's maturity as a film director and served as a kind of an artistic basis for the great films that were to follow from him. Movies like The Color Purple and Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan and Lincoln and
Mhm.
a bunch of others. It's not as this movie's not as widely seen as has not been widely as seen as the director's other movies. You said it was released in 1987. It was
Mhm.
because it was very different material for him at that point in his career. It's quite dark actually. And prior to this, we have Close Encounters, which is this inspirational science fiction movie, E.T., which is this, lovely movie. David Lean was originally set to direct this movie before Spielberg came on board. Originally, Spielberg was just going to produce this, but Lean said to him, you ought to do it. And, I mean, I would have taken it on if David Lean said to me to do it, but this was very different material for Spielberg to direct because it was about a young boy. Yeah, that's a nice shot in the movie. John Malkovich and Christian Bale. It's about a young boy who goes from living this very privileged life with his wealthy British family in Shanghai to becoming a prisoner of war in an internment camp that was operated by the Japanese during World War II. So it was a highly dramatic and dark motion picture. Yeah, that's a great scene. He's the boy is he's giving himself up so that he could be picked up and taken to a camp to where at least he'll have food. It was a highly dramatic and dark movie, although shreds of Spielberg's optimism kind of tended to emerge at times. But essentially, this was new and different material for him. But in my opinion, even though it initially failed to pass muster commercially. It didn't make a whole lot of money. In
Mhm.
my opinion, it's one of his greatest films and my personal favorite of all his movies. It's epic, it's emotional, it's very grand, it's sweeping, it's historical, with another great in the endless supply of great scores by John Williams. It
Mhm.
featured the movie debut of a young Christian Bale, who's there in the picture there,
Mhm.
who delivers, if not the greatest child performance in all of movies, certainly there exists none that's greater than his. I think whatever you think of the movie, I think this is a must-see picture to just take in this astonishing performance. Bale was only 12 or 13 when he made the film.
Wow.
He's featured in just about every scene. The movie's 2 hours and 34 minutes. It's epic in length, and he should have won an Oscar for this performance. But because what he achieves in this movie is breathtaking and astonishing. And it's another example of Spielberg's genius in directing child actors. This boy had never, well, he went on to become an Academy Award winning actor, but he had never made a movie. And but he was the centerpiece of the entire film. I think it's a great film. I think it's a great adventure film. It's about the loss of innocence, I think it was, that Spielberg said at the time when he was doing press for it. And it's also just a film that I think needs to be seen by more people. I don't know why people didn't flock to see it when it opened, because it got generally good reviews. It's a heavy movie, but it's very entertaining. Spielberg, if nothing else, he knows probably better than anybody how to tell a really good story. And I think this is a movie that if more people saw, they would go, hey, yeah, this is a great movie, So anyway, that's my classic movie recommendation of the week.
So what country are they in that this is happening?
They're in his father is a sort of like he's a British sort of emissary. They live in Shanghai in China. But during the war, was it the Japanese? I should know my history better. The Japanese invaded China. They basically abducted all the British citizens that were there, and most of them were very wealthy, and they put them in internment camps, and a lot of them died. That's the backdrop of this story.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to recap it. We first have the Phoenician. You say of the Phoenician, lots of style, not a lot of substance. Hard to defend this movie. You said you couldn't wait until it was over. It was impossible to get through. You thought you were going to die because you just kept looking at your watch. It was a skip. It was a Tim Sika skipperoo. No can do. How to Train Your Dragon, you were surprised by how much you liked this movie because you said this live action genre allowed for better special effects. You said that it was successful at character relationships and story building. And of all of these How to Train Your Dragon movies, this may well be your favorite. You said it works, it's thrilling, it's involving, it's poetic, and it's touching, and you think it's going to be a big hit.
Yes.
The Materialists, or just Materialists with no the, you said you liked it, that we got a lot more about relationships here than we usually get. We're like more of a deep dive. Instead of a rom-com, you say it's a rom-dram, like a rom-drama. You said great acting, inspires discussion about relationships, makes you think. You're still thinking about this one. You recommend The Materialists.
Yes.
And your classic movie rec of the week from 1987 is Empire of the Sun. You said Christian Bale may well deliver the greatest child performance to date. It's a must-see movie and a great adventure film that just needs to be seen. Empire of the Sun.
There you go.
There you go. We've done it again. Right. I have a comment from, I have a couple comments actually, but one of them is from Heather. She said, speaking of classics, she's heard a rumor that a sequel to Spaceballs will be coming out in 2027.
Yes, there's going to be a sequel to Mel Brooks's crazy satire of Star Wars and the Star Wars movies. Yeah, I think, I don't know if he's filming it right now, but yeah, one is definitely in the works. Yeah. Yep.
Louise says, yep, Bale's been great right from the start. So, yeah. Also, Yvonne agrees with you. Spielberg has had such wonderful, varied movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's so versatile, and he's tackled pretty much. He even did, I was going to say he's done everything but a musical, but no, he recently directed West Side Story. Yeah, the man is amazing. I mean, the man is just an amazing filmmaking genius,
And Eileen says Dragon must be really good because both Sika and Snyder recommended it. So you get a double recommendation, you're good.
Yeah, the Sika Snyder recommendation.
The Snyder double whammy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or the Snyder Sika. Anyway.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Tim. You are amazing. It is At the Movies with Tim Sika. Have a great one. Bye, Tim.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Kim. Bye.